Then we talk about the third cranial nerve. Can you see here? Now before going that this portion of the cerebrum, we call this as the hind brain. We call this as the hind brain. So this portion from here up to here. So this one is we call it as a midbrain. This one we call it as a pons, and this part we call it as the medulla oblongata. So apart from 10 cranial nerves, 12 cranial nerves, 10 cranial nerves arises from hindbrain. So we'll see one by one and we'll summarize again. We have seen the first cranial nerve, olfactory, which was there in the going into brain, that is sense of smell. Then optic, that is going to taking the sense of vision. It directly again goes inside the brain. So these two first are called tracts. Then third, this one is third. Third one is called oculomotor. Oculomotor word indicates oculus means eye, motor means movement of eyeball. So this is a third cranial nerve, oculomotor. Then fourth cranial nerve, this is the smallest cranial nerve. We call it as trochlear. Then third, fourth, fifth one. Can you see this one? This is a big one which is coming from here. It shows two things. One, this is motor fibers. These are sensory fibers. This is fifth cranial nerve. And this fifth cranial nerve, we call it as trigeminal. Then as we go ahead, we can see now this is sixth, abducent. This is what we call as abducent. Word has some suggestion. So we can remember abducent means abduction. What it abducts? It abducts the eyeball. So it is called abducent. So there is a trochlear, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducent. Then next now what we see here, this one, or we can say this one is a vestibulocochlear. This is the word what we have to remember. This is the eighth cranial nerve. We call it as the vestibulocochlear. And then there is a seventh cranial nerve. This one we call it as a facial. There's a lecture was there on the facial muscles of facial expression. So this is the nerve which supplies the muscles of facial expression. So this is called facial or 7. This one is vestibulocochlear. This is 8. Then A from the medulla, we are going to get remaining last 4. Glossopharyngeal, vagus. This one which is coming from below and joining here. This one is accessory, and this is going to be the hypoglossal. So we will just summarize first the olfactory, optic. These are two tracts: oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducent. So out of this, oculomotor, trochlear, and abducent are supplying to the muscles of eyeball. Trigeminal is chiefly sensory, and a very small part which goes to muscles of mastication. So that is going to be the fifth cranial nerve. Then the facial, that is seventh, mostly of motor nerve. Then vestibulocochlear. This word we have to remember. Vestibulo means balance. So it is going to go in the inner ear. In the it is going to help in equilibrium. And cochlear is auditory. So vestibulocochlear is basically first part is for equilibrium maintenance, and second part is for the hearing. Then glossopharyngeal. I think Manjari Madam has talked with you about the pharynx. So pharynx, major muscles of the pharynx are supplied by glossopharyngeal nerve. So glossopharyngeal nerve supplies most of the part of the pharynx. It takes some part from the accessory and also supplies the soft palate. Then another 10th cranial nerve, that is called vagus. Vagus, words itself suggests us that this vagus means vague like us, or we call it as very long cranial nerve. We have talked so many times when we talk about abdominal organs, thoracic organ, everywhere, the major parasympathetic supply which comes from the vagus. Then accessory. So in 12th, you talked about spinal accessory organs. Please remember, in medical sciences, we call it accessory because it has two parts. One is the cranial part and another is the spinal part. So it is called the accessory, having two parts, cranial and the spinal part. And then the last which supplies the tongue is called hypoglossal. So these are the names, 12 names of this one. We had just seen the approximate location. You can see now olfactory. Then you can see the optic. This is called optic chiasma. This is optic tract. Then we talk about oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducent, facial, vestibulocochlear, then we see about the glossopharyngeal, then the vagus, then the accessory and hypoglossal. So these are the those what we see. Now what we have to understand here, we can classify and remember easily how the cranial nerve arises from the brainstem. So we divide it into rule of two, which is going to directly to the cerebrum, two for midbrain, four are coming from pons, then four are coming from the medulla oblongata. So two are going to the brain, two are going to the midbrain, so 2 plus 2, 4. Four are coming from the pons, and remaining four are coming from the medulla oblongata. Remember it. So whenever the question will be asked from where this nerve arises, because we have to remember from where the nerve is coming, usually their nuclei lies in their brainstem. The gray matter lies in their brainstem, in that region. So we can remember olfactory directly goes to the cerebrum and cerebral process. Optic chiasma, optic tract, which carries it from here and goes to the occipital lobe directly. Then two nerves, third and fourth, goes to the midbrain. Oculomotor and trochlear goes to the midbrain. So we can remember it like that. Pons. Pons are having next four nerves. Can you see now this is trigeminal, which is coming from the pons. Then there will be a abducent. Then there will be facial. And there will be the vestibulocochlear. So these four nerves are coming from pons. Can you remember now? Four nerves. Trigeminal, abducent, facial, vestibulocochlear. These four nerves are arising from the pons, and remaining four now, that is glossopharyngeal, vagus, hypoglossal, and accessory. These four are arising from medulla oblongata. So you have to remember this every time it will be asked. Hypoglossal nerve arises from. It arises from medulla oblongata. So one, two from the brain, two from the midbrain, third, fourth from the midbrain, then the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth cranial nerve arises from the pons. 9, 10th, 11th, and 12th comes from the medulla oblongata. So this is just a revision of this. We will go one by one. Olfactory. This is olfactory now. So if you remember cranial fossa, we have talked about from which foramen cranial nerve passes. So we'll add one more thing. Each cranial nerve from where it comes out from the brain. So cranial cavity. Can you see this is a small openings can be seen. So this is olfactory bulb. These are olfactory sensory receptors. So this is coming from the cribriform plates. Olfactory nerve is a sensory nerve, one. Second thing, it carries a sense of smell. Where it goes, it has to open in the nasal cavity. How it comes in the nasal cavity? It comes from cribriform plate. It comes from the, just remember these few things which will be very helpful whenever we go ahead. Now second is optic. Optic nerve, which carries the sense of sensation, and that is what we call as the vision. So it is again a sensory nerve. Optic nerve is also a sensory nerve. What is this course, overall course? If try to see that there are light when it comes inside, the light goes on opposite side. So see that this light which is coming from medial side goes on the medial side, goes on the temporal side, and here this is nasal side of the eyeball. So can you see here that the nasal fibers they are crossing and temporal fibers are going on the same side. So this is what we call optic chiasm. So before going that, from where the optic nerve comes out from the cranium, that is what we call as an optic canal. So second thing is an optic canal. So optic nerve is a sensory nerve. Second point is optic nerve carries the sense of vision, comes from the retina. How optic nerve comes in the cranial cavity? It comes from the optic canal. Then half of its fibers they cross, that is called optic chiasma. Then it forms the optic tract, that is what we see beneath the skull, beneath the brain, and then it goes to the lateral geniculate body. And from here, the most of the fibers goes to the occipital lobe, and here then it will be sensed here, and the vision will be created. So optic nerve is the second cranial nerve. Now, apart from this, we never give much of the attention, but we have to talk about the movement of eyeball. We have to talk about the movement of eyeball. So this is first now we are going to talk about. That is called third cranial nerve. Third cranial nerve. Third cranial nerve. So what is the third cranial nerve? This third cranial is called as a what itself suggests oculomotor. It is also called as a oculomotor. Can you mute your mic? Can you mute your mic? So oculomotor is the third cranial nerve. So what it does, now we have to remember to move the eyes. Any interesting fact you find about the eyes, both eyes when they move? When they move up, both moves up. When they move down or they're in depression, they both move together downward. That is what Madam Nasta told you. There are six these muscles which are called as extraocular muscles, out of which most of the muscles are supplied by oculomotor. That is all the so that is called oculomotor. That is third cranial nerve. And then there's one more nerve, cranial nerve, which is very small but very important. That is called trochlear. Trochlear supplies superior. That supplies the superior is oblique or oblique superior muscle. Okay, so there is oculomotor, trochlear. Trochlear is the fourth cranial nerve. Oculomotor is the third. So oculomotor and trochlear nerve both are motor in function, arises from the midbrain, and it comes out from the cranial cavity from the superior orbital fissure. It arises from the superior orbital fissure. Okay, and it's oculomotor supplies most of the muscles. Trochlear, we have to remember, supplies the superior oblique muscle. Trochlear supplies the superior oblique muscle. And one more muscle which we are going to see later, that is called the sixth cranial nerve, that is called the abducens. And abducens supplies only one muscle, extraocular muscle, that is lateral rectus. I know this is a revision of the movements of the eyeball. So oculomotor, so this is very important. Such a small area, such a few muscles, but has three cranial nerves: oculomotor, trochlear, and the abducens. Abducens supplies lateral rectus. Trochlear supplies superior oblique, and rest of the muscles of external supplied by oculomotor. If you see the movements of eyeball, one action paradox is there. When I rotate my right eye laterally, at the same time, my left eye moves medially. This is something called an action paradox. Usually, when I move the hands, hands will move in a synchronization. But when it moves with the eyeball, lateral movement of the eyeball, which is chiefly done by the lateral rectus, right sides, at the same time, middle eyeball moves medially. So this is what we call action paradox. So three cranial nerves, and they're very precise, highly selective. Each fiber gets a separate motor unit. Each fiber gets a separate motor unit. And now we're going to talk the largest cranial nerve. Even though we took a lot of this one, we are going to talk in brief about this. It's called fifth cranial nerve. Fifth cranial nerve is trigeminal. Fifth cranial nerve is trigeminal. So trigeminal arises from pons. It arises from the pons. Large nerve. It has a major sensory aspect. And then what we have to remember in cranial fossa, if you remember, on the upper surface of the pictus part of temporal bone, they are called as the trigeminal fossa. We have called it as the trigeminal fossa. In that trigeminal fossa, we see the ganglion. We see this ganglion. And this ganglion we call as trigeminal ganglion. And from this ganglion, three nerve arises. This one upper, which goes to the eyeball, we call ophthalmic. Second one, which goes to pterygopalatine fossa and then later on supplies the lacrimal gland, all those things, that is called the maxillary. And the third one, we call it as the mandibular. So we have to remember today at least trigeminal nerve, fifth cranial nerve, forms the trigeminal ganglia. Here there is a trigeminal ganglia, divides into three: ophthalmic, maxillary nerve, and the mandibular. So these are three branches of trigeminal nerve, chiefly sensory. Very few must find muscle fibers are supplied. We're going to talk in brief about that. So we'll go one by one. So trigeminal nerve, fifth cranial nerve divides into three. So first is called ophthalmic branch. First branch of trigeminal is called ophthalmic branch. What this ophthalmic branch does? This ophthalmic, we have seen three motor nerves to the eyeball, but there is a sensory nerve which is coming from the superior orbital fissure going to the orbit. That is called ophthalmic nerve. Remember, ophthalmic word is different than the optic. Optic nerve is sensory, going from optic canal. Ophthalmic nerve is a sensory, but sensation of touch, pain, and all those things is coming, and that is going to ophthalmic is a branch of trigeminal nerve, goes from superior orbital fissure, it divides into three, and then we are not going to detail about this, but it goes into orbit. Madam must have told you about that. That's called lacrimal, nasociliary, and frontal. And they take a sensation from the orbit, from the cornea, from the conjunctiva. We know that cornea and conjunctiva is very sensitive to pain, and then you can see some nerves which are going above. We are seen in the scalp. This is called superior orbital and the what we call as the frontal. So superior orbital and frontal are branches of ophthalmic nerve. So the ophthalmic nerve is the first branch of trigeminal nerve. Then there is a maxillary. This is second branch, maxillary nerve. That's the second branch of trigeminal. If you remember, just between the superior orbital fissure, there was one foramen. We call it foramen of rotundum. We call it as a foramen of rotundum. So maxillary nerve passes from foramen rotundum. Comes, this one is called pterygopalatine fossa. This is what we call as pterygopalatine fossa. It comes into pterygopalatine fossa, and then it goes in the orbit, in the floor of orbit. And from there, it comes out from the front below the orbit. That is what we call inferior orbital nerve. So inferior orbital nerve is a branch of maxillary. This is what we have to remember. Superior orbital nerve is a branch of ophthalmic. Inferior orbital nerve is a branch of maxillary nerve. Maxillary nerve and ophthalmic nerve are the branches of trigeminal nerve. Okay, so this is what we have to remember. Here again, I just want to show, see, this is a maxillary nerve. It goes passes from the foramen rotundum, comes into pterygopalatine fossa. Now it is going into the floor of the orbit. And now this, when it goes into floor of orbit, we call it infra-orbital or inferior orbital nerve. That is what we talk about. This is what we call as a maxillary nerve, second branch. The third branch is called, very large branch, we call it as mandibular. If you remember, base of skull, you can remember that mandibular nerve which passes from the foramen ovale, with other three structures. We'll just revise it. From the foramen ovale, fourth structure passes. We call it as male. M stands for mandibular nerve. A stands for accessory meningeal artery. L stands for lesser petrosal nerve. And E stands for emissary vein. So this is what four things. These four things. What we can. This is what we call it as the. We call this as the foramen ovale. This is what we call it as the foramen ovale. Okay. So this is a foramen ovale. So mandibular nerve is coming down, and then it is going to go down, and then it divides. Now we have to remember, mandibular nerve will be having what it has had. It has mandibular nerve. It has a motor branch and a sensory branch. Sensory branch, which goes down, supplies most of the part of the mandible, surrounding mandible and lower teeth. And motor part of mandibular nerve, if you remember, Madam talked about pharyngeal arches. There we said that the second arch nerve is called it as the first arch nerve. That is what we called it as the mandibular nerve. So this mandibular nerve supplies the muscles of mastication. They supply the muscles of mastication. What you have to remember here, that anatomically, muscles of mastication includes masseter, superior temporal, supratemporal muscle, then lateral pterygoid and medial pterygoid. Please remember this. These are the four muscles of mastication. Buccinator in physiology is also part of muscles of mastication, but anatomically, buccinator is not considered as a muscle of mastication. So we have to remember, mandibular nerve supplies four muscles of mastication. That is what you remember today. It is called masseter, lateral pterygoid, middle pterygoid, and superior supratemporal muscle. That is what is supplied. This was the mandibular. This is only part of the trigeminal which is motor. Otherwise, rest all ophthalmic, maxillary, and most of the part of the mandibular is sensory. We are going to talk mandibular now separately as a lecture. Just remember at this moment. So, three branches of trigeminal. If you remember, one is called ophthalmic, second is called maxillary, third is called mandibular. Ophthalmic passes from supraorbital fissure, maxillary passes from foramen rotundum, and the mandibular nerve passes from foramen ovale. So this is what we talk about the trigeminal nerve. Now we'll talk about the abduction. Where I just already said there are three nerves which supplies the muscles of eyeball. So abducent word itself, some people call it abducens, some call as abducent. Not both are correct. So remember, abducent nerve which supplies the lateral rectus muscle. It is so precise. It has 1800 nerve fibers, supplies 1800 fibers of the lateral rectus. Lateral rectus helps in abduction of the eyeball. Lateral rectus helps in the abduction. This is one of the smaller nerve. Now we'll talk about next nerve, that is called the facial. That is what we call as the facial. So this facial nerve, it has unique course. So if you remember, we said that four nerves comes from medulla. So first we talk about the trigeminal. Now we'll talk about the facial. So facial nucleus is in the pons. In the pons, and from there the facial nerve comes. It has two parts, sensory and motor. Here now it is a reverse like trigeminal. Facial nerve is chiefly motor and some part is sensory. So we talk about the motor, as already we see that all the muscles of facial expression. Why it is so important? As a human, most of our communication goes through the muscles of facial expression. That is one function. Second function is muscles of face, which is a modification of the platysma or the panniculus carnosus. Around the eyeball, it tries to close or open the eyelids. Then there is around the nose, not much of the muscle is important, but then they are using into various facial expression. Then another muscle is orbicularis oris, which helps in opening and closing of the mouth, oral cavity, as well as there is when we smile or when we laugh, there are certain muscles which helps in, and then we call it as. Then there is muscle which is going from the around the ear. So all these facial muscle, major facial muscles will be supplied by the facial nerve. What is unique feature of facial nerve? This facial nerve comes from the pons, then it enters into the ear cavity. This is what you have to remember. Enters into the ear cavity through the internal acoustic meatus. Remember, this is what you have to remember. It comes into the ear cavity through internal acoustic meatus. Then it goes around in the inner ear, inner ear, then the middle ear, and that is what we're going to study separately. And then it comes out from the cranial cavity through stylomastoid foramen. It comes out from the stylomastoid foramen. So remember, it is coming from the pons, goes into the ear cavity from the internal acoustic meatus. From the internal acoustic meatus, it winds around into the inner ear and middle ear and comes out from the middle ear. Between the two processes, this is mastoid process, and here there will be the styloid process. So this foramen is called stylomastoid foramen, deep to parotid gland, and then it divides into 5 branches and supplies most of the parts. This is one thing, most of the parts of muscles of facial expression. Some part of the facial nerve forms the chorda tympani nerve. Just remember the name today. And on some part of the facial nerve, which becomes the greater petrosal nerve, which supplies the pterygopalatine ganglia. That is the greater petrosal nerve. Joins with the deep petrosal in foramen lacerum, joining to pterygoid and ultimately supplies the lacrimal gland. So facial nerve supplies 2 glands. I have in the A table. I will send that table to you. Just remember it. So facial nerve is chiefly motor, partly sensory. Partly sensory. Another nerve, which is a unique feature, which comes from the pons and it has two components, vestibulo, that is, and cochlear. This is the eighth cranial, vestibulo-cochlear, eighth cranial. See, it supplies organ of Corti, okay, and it also takes a sensation from the organ which contains the ampulla of Victor and semicircular canals. It carries the information about position of the head to the rest of our body. Plays a very important role. Whenever I make tilt my head forward and bend forward, my back muscles doesn't allow me to fall. This all this thing is done because of this organ. This and position of head, because we know that semicircular canals. First, we'll try to understand semicircular canals. Semicircular canals are in three axes: X, Y, and Z axis in each ear. And there's a flow of fluid, and that can be sensed. And that is sensed to the vestibular nerve. So this, both sides, there are three canals on the left side and three canals on the right side. So both senses what is my position of it to rest of my body. Second thing, in vestibular system, there are some static receptors which helps to sense the gravity. And that is what happens. I can give you the good example. If I suddenly go into the pool, water pool, or in the seas for some time, I feel that I am losing my balance. Reason is that because of the buoyancy of water, gravitational force has slightly reduced and body tries to adjust itself and takes a time. And that is what we call static equilibrium. That is what we call as a static equilibrium. Other way around, semicircular canal helps in kinetic equilibrium. And all these sensations are carried from the vestibular branch of vestibulocochlear nerve to the cerebellum. Vestibular branch or vestibulocochlear nerve is mainly connected with the cerebellum and helps in the maintenance of balance. So that is vestibular. And cochlear definitely helps in the sense of hearing. So cochlear is the sense of it goes into organ of Corti, and then it takes a sensation of auditory. And this again amazing fact. It senses two things. It senses the frequency of the sound, and second is the amplitude of the sound. So two characteristic of the sound. And usually called as frequency of the sound, then the pitch of the sound, then we call it the wavelength of the sound, and then we talk about the amplitude of the sound. So amplitude, frequency, these two things has been sensed at the same level in the cochlea, and this information is taken from here to the through the cochlear nerve to the pons, and from there it will be distributed and will be sensed. And second thing is important is that apart from this, whenever the sound falls from a certain direction, if it is coming from the right side, it will first fall on the right ear, then on the left ear. There is a fraction of second difference is there, and that is calculated. And that calculation is done at the level of pons. So vestibulocochlear nerve arises from the pons. It has two components, vestibular and cochlear. It enters in the ear cavity through the internal acoustic meanders. So if you try to see from internal acoustic meanders, three structure passes: facial nerve, vestibulocochlear nerve, and one artery, that is internal labyrinthine or posterior labyrinthine artery. These are structures. So from here, and now vestibulocochlear nerve splits. One supplies to the sense of equilibrium and then helps in sensation. So vestibulocochlear nerve is a sensory nerve. Facial nerve again passes from intercaustic meanders, as we have said already, passes from the internal ear, goes into the middle ear. From here it goes down, and then this facial nerve comes out from the stylomoster foramen. Now next nerve called as glossopharyngeal. Glossopharyngeal is basically a sensory nerve. Then also it's a mixed variety. It also supplies the muscles of the pharynx and palate, and it also has a parasympathetic. So glossopharyngeal nerve itself suggests part it supplies the glossus, that is tongue, and major part supplies the pharynx. So all the constrictions of the pharynx helps in. You have seen, Manjari Madam must have told you that pharynx is divided into three parts: nasopharynx, oropharynx, and laryngopharynx. So, and then it requires a lot of coordination. We know that whenever I take a bolus, I chew it, and then the bolus goes behind. The soft palate has to close this. This is what we call nasopharyngeal isthmus. So to close this, the palate has to be lifted. Again, the glossopharyngeal plays an important role in lifting of this. So the food doesn't goes into the nasal cavity. Other way around, whenever I am inspiring the air should be directed as it falls on the back of the pharynx, and then it should direct it towards the laryngeal opening. It should go towards the laryngeal opening, and then at the same time the glossopharyngeal muscle will close the oropharyngeal isthmus, and that has to be coordinated. So remember, when I inspire, I am unable to talk. I talk when I expire the air. Sound is produced when I expire air, not I inspire air. And then this part, this is a very crucial part which connects, this is called laryngopharynx, which connects to the esophagus through cricopharyngeal isthmus, and then again it is coordinated. So whenever the food bolus goes, it has to go into the cricopharyngeal isthmus and into the esophagus at the same time. So again it is coordinated here. If some uncoordination occurs, the food may go into the laryngeal opening, giving rise to the amount of curve reflex. So all these muscles has been very well orchestrated by the glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve. Now this is the nerve from here. All the nerves are arising from medulla oblongata. Glossopharyngeal. Then there is vagus. Then the accessory and hypoglossal. These all four are basically the nerves which are coming from the medulla oblongata. So glossopharyngeal arises from the medulla oblongata, comes out from the cranial cavity from the jugular foramen. Here it has two swellings, which we see as separately superior and inferior glossopharyngeal ganglions are there, and from here the glossopharyngeal nerve supplies branches from the what you call it as the tympanic plexus, and then it supplies the whole of the glossopharyngeal plexus supplies the pharyngeal muscles, and from the tympanic plexus it gives another nerve which we have seen as called lesser petrosal nerve. So lesser petrosal nerve. This is where we have to remember. Greater petrosal nerve arises from the facial nerve. Lesser petrosal nerve arises from glossopharyngeal nerve. We'll talk again about the same thing when we talk about the ganglions. Just remember at this much, so glossopharyngeal nerve, then we talk about the vagus. I divided the vagus into two parts. One up to the neck, base of the neck, and another which is thorax and abdomen. We're just going to talk about in brief about the vagus. Vagus is the 10th cranial nerve. Again, we'll talk about. It arises from the medulla oblongata. So it has a nucleus in the medulla oblongata, a huge nucleus. So vagus nerve is a 10th cranial nerve, arises from the medulla oblongata. Third thing, it is chiefly parasympathetic. It is chiefly parasympathetic. We call parasympathetic as a craniocaudal outflow. So cranial outflow of the major parasympathetic is coming from the vagus. It supplies most of the organ. It has some motor part, but this supplies most of the organs of GIT, thoracic, and parasympathetic. Before that, in the neck region, vagus chiefly supplies the what we call it as the laryngeal muscles. It supplies the laryngeal muscles. If you remember the arches, that is the fourth arch and the sixth arch. Fourth and sixth arch are basically superior laryngeal and the recurrent laryngeal. Superior laryngeal and recurrent laryngeal both are branches of vagus. Both are the branches of vagus. Now, which supplies the larynx, helps in larynx maintaining its airflow. Then it supplies even the carotid, then it goes down, then it supplies. Now we see here, it supplies the lungs, it supplies the heart, it supplies the stomach, supplies the whole of the small intestine, duodenum, jejunum, cecum, it supplies the pancreas, it supplies the kidney, it supplies the suprarenal, goes into the cecum appendix, ascending colon and transverse colon. So we can summarize. Vagus right from the neck starts supplying the larynx. Then as it goes down, It is two branches of the superior or its superior laryngeal nerve and the recurrent laryngeal nerve. We know that the left recurrent laryngeal nerve comes into thoracic cavity and goes back here. Then it supplies the aorta in thorax, then the heart. So the vagal shock, this is the term what we use, if you remember in physiology. Vagal shock means this is one small example I can give. Vagus nerve, if I punch in the abdomen or there's a sudden pain in abdominal organ, vagus nerve is stimulated. If the vagus nerve is stimulated suddenly, what it can do? What it does? It slows down the heart rate so much so that heart can go to standstill for a few seconds. That is what, because vagus is parasympathetic, and that is what we call it as the vagal shock. That is what we call it as the vagal. So there is a severe pain in the abdominal organ or low on the abdominal organ. There can be a vagal shock. One second thing, a small branch of vagus nerve even supplies external acoustic meatus, around the external acoustic meatus. That what happens if I put some pin or something like that in my ear to remove the wax, and wax is too tight. Again, there can be a vagal shock. So we have to be very careful as a ENT specialist, as a doctor. Whenever I want to take out the wax from the ear, if it's too tight, too hard, usually we give the Solivax-like substances which softens the ear wax, and then we remove it. Because otherwise, if you try to do it very harshly, it can also lead to the vagal shock. So what is vagal shock? Basic understanding. If I get a sudden pain, then it can lead to the what I call it as the vagal shock. Okay, it is called the vagus. Then we talk about the accessory. We have to remember about accessory two things. One thing is that there is accessory has two parts: spinal part of accessory and a cranial part of accessory. Cranial part of the accessory again comes from the medulla oblongata, and spinal comes from the C1, C2, and they join together and they supply two important muscles. That is what we have to do. So accessory is the 10th, 11th cranial nerve. It supplies the two muscles, trapezius, that is what we are seeing in superior extremity, and sternocleidomastoid. These two muscles are supplied by the accessory nerve. We're going to see the accessory nerve, especially from in the point of view of the posterior triangle of the neck. Okay. Second thing, accessory vagus. Both are also coming from the jugular foramen. So from into the jugular foramen, three nerves are coming outside. 9th, nasopharyngeal, 10th, vagus, 11th, accessory. And the last nerve, which is called hypoglossal. Do you remember? In the foramen magnum, we see one canal, and that canal we call it as the hypoglossal canal. We call it as the hypoglossal canal. So hypoglossal nerve arises again from the medulla oblongata. It passes from the hypoglossal canal, and then it joins, it supplies the most of the muscles of the tongue. So hypoglossal 12th cranial nerve is basically supplying the muscles of the tongue. That is what we have to remember. Now, just to summarize it, olfactory, sensory, sense of smell. Optic, it is a sensory, it is a sense of visual. Oculomotor, it is motor, helps in movements of eyeball, and additional function is parasympathetic, that is ciliary muscles and accommodation. That is what we're going to do later. We'll talk about oculomotor nerve separately. We'll talk about this. And then the trochlear, again, it is a motor. Just these 2 points, just today you remember. This one we're going to deal it in great detail. I will try to make a PDF and send it to you. Then the fifth cranial nerve, we have divided the fifth cranial nerve into 3 parts: ophthalmic, maxillary, mandibular. Ophthalmic, first branch is sensory, goes towards the eyeball. Maxillary, sensory, goes to the nasal cavities, palate, mid-face, maxillary, and mandibular is mixed. It supplies around the muscles of mastication, and it also supplies basically the skin and the upper part of the neck is sensory. Abduction is a motor. Okay. Facial is mixed. Vestibulocochlear is sensory. Is a vestibular sense of balance or equilibrium. Cochlear is hearing. Glossopharyngeal, again, it is a mixed type of voice. And the vagus, which is mixed, major is basically the sensation as well as the parasympathetic. So parasympathetic of vagus plays an important role, cardiac muscles and other things. And then the 11th cranial, that is accessory, that is motor. And the 12th is hypoglossal, that is again motor. Okay. So guys, we have just talked about overall introduction to cranial nerve, from where they come, how they go. We'll revise it in tomorrow's lecture again, and we'll go further with the remaining part of abdominal exercise. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.